As we continue our Before the Bench series on Tennessee Court Talk, we have the pleasure of now sitting with Judge David Veile of the 21st Judicial District that encompasses Williamson County. Judge Veile, welcome to Tennessee Court Talk.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
I want to start with something that I find interesting is when judges have careers before going to law school. Tell me about how your career started.
My legal career actually started in high school. And I attended high school in downtown Nashville and needed an after-school job. And some friends from church had a law firm in Nashville and hired me to be a runner. And that was my first opportunity to see how the law can really help people as a force for good. And that's where the seed was planted to go into law. When I graduated from undergrad, I was not in a position to go to law school at that time. And I saw that the Metro Police Department in Nashville was hiring for officers. And that was also something that I'd always been drawn toward. And so I joined the police department and was fortunate to be able to serve as a police officer in patrol. I never lost the desire to go through law school and become an attorney. And so when the opportunity presented itself for me to attend the Nashville School of Law while I was serving as an officer, I jumped at the opportunity. And so after I served in patrol for a few years and had been in law school for a couple of years, I was then transferred to the case preparation division and became one of the law instructors at the police academy. So I was teaching the officers the law that they needed to use, constitutional and statutory law that they needed to use to enforce the law. I was then promoted to sergeant and was a patrol sergeant for a period. By that time, I had my law degree, had passed the bar, had my law license, and was able to then take the jump from law enforcement to living the law as an attorney.
You know, something unique in that story is that a lot of judges never get to see the boots on the ground work that go into something like a DUI stop or a domestic violence situation that's, sort of unfolding right in front of your eyes that you have to de-escalate and then it's going to be judged later in court. But that's not the case for you. Do you think that kind of experience helps you now in your current role?
Absolutely, I do. I think the advent of body cameras has helped because it does, to some extent, give judges the opportunity to have a limited view of the officer's perspective on the scene. But even that doesn't capture really the totality of being presented with a situation that can take a bad turn in an instant and having to be in the moment, making decisions, evaluating all the different issues and circumstances and doing ultimately what has to be done under the law. So I do think it's given me an advantage in the sense that when I have an officer come and take the stand and testify in a suppression hearing or in a trial, I've been where they've been, and I've knocked on the door at 3 a.m. I've made the traffic stop for a taillight out, knowing that it may just be a traffic stop for a taillight out, or there may be a pound of methamphetamine in the trunk. And so I think that gives me, when officers describe the situation, I think it gives me a good perspective for what they were going through at the time. That helps me in making a determination as for whatever the legal standard may be, probable cause, reasonable suspicion. But I think I have a healthy working knowledge of the actual hands-on life situation that these officers deal with every day.
So take me from sergeant in police force or for Metro PD, going to law school, getting your law license. Now take me from what made you decide, I have this law degree, I'm ready to transition.
When I was in law school, I did not plan to get my law degree and leave the department. I really enjoyed serving as an officer, and so that was not something I was just going to check off. But once I got my law degree and was licensed and I was serving as a sergeant, I was on the midnight shift. I had young kids at the time, and I felt that there was more. I could do more as an attorney at that point than I could as an officer and a sergeant. And so I had several opportunities, several job offers, and was able to jump in. When I first began practicing law, because I had been an officer, I just I was not going to do criminal defense. I would never do that. I'd been on the other side for so long. And so I started with civil litigation and business litigation, construction litigation, some land use type work. And I did that for several years, and it just wasn't what I enjoyed. It was a job, and I was very fortunate to have it, but it wasn't something I looked forward to doing every day. And so I had to do a self-assessment at one point, and I thought to myself, when I look at my calendar, what piques my interest, what makes me excited to go to court, go to work. And it was when one of the partner's friends' kids had been arrested for simple possession or a DUI, because I knew the law. I know how officers think and how they relate. And I started doing more of that and realized it was what I was meant to do at the time. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I think I was able to give my clients a good service because I had been there and been on the other side. And so I knew the right way to do it. I knew how it's done, and I could use that in having reasonable conversations with DAs and trying to resolve cases if possible, or if necessary, taking them to trial. So it started with civil, and I swore I'd never do criminal defense, and then eventually evolved into doing about 95% criminal defense.
You know, it's interesting that you didn't want anything to do with criminal defense when you first got in. I would have thought, that's what you know.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean,
my initial thought was, I didn't want to, I hate to use this term, but I didn't want to go to the dark side. Sure. Because I had one perspective, because of my law enforcement experience, I had one perspective of a defense attorney's job, which was to try to get these defendants off. And what I realized in going in serving in that role as a defense attorney is that's not a defense attorney's job. A defense attorney's job is to ensure that the Constitution is respected and followed, that the law is followed, and that justice is done, whatever that may be, with any particular criminal defendant or any person who finds themselves in the criminal justice system. And I've represented victims and assisted victims at times over my career, but I realized there was my initial perception of a defense attorney's role was not accurate.
So starting in 2011, you began applying for a judicial vacancy in the 21st Judicial District, finally succeeding in 2024. What made you keep the motivation for applying for judicial vacancies in the 21st?
I would say a few years into my practice, I had the benefit, because of the firm where I was employed, I was able to go to different courts in many different counties all over Middle Tennessee and appear in front of, at last count, it was over 125 different judges. And I could see how certain judges did things differently, and just felt a calling pretty early on that, based on my experience and my skill set, that I thought that I would be a good fit for that. And so I felt just a few years into my practice that at some point that I would be a good fit on the bench. And so I began with my first application in 2011. And was nominated, but was not the appointee. But I didn't lose that spark. I didn't lose that draw. What I felt was a calling. Over the years, there were 3 additional opportunities to apply. A total of 3 applications for circuit court, and then 1 application for the Court of Criminal Appeals. And I was fortunate to receive a nomination 4 out of 4 times, which I was deeply honored and am deeply honored. But with the last nomination and not receiving the appointment, I decided that after trying for an appointment 4 times, it was time to go a different route. And so I elected to run in the election and try to, if I couldn't get appointed, then I was going to try to get elected.
And you did,
and
successfully. I did. Yeah. Other people that we talked to who've changed careers into law sort of had this like epiphany moment of, like, Justice Page, for example. He was doing pharmacy school, became a pharmacist, and like a year in was like, I can't do this anymore. It doesn't seem like it was like that for you. You always saw it as like the next ladder. I'm a police officer. I love it, but I know where my next step is. Mm-hmm. I'm a lawyer, but I know where my next step is. Explain that mindset a little bit to me.
I've just always tried to be open to change, which is I'm not inherently a fan of change. I tend to resist change. I think just my nature, and so I have to be conscious about accepting change and actually seeking change. My goal initially to become a lawyer, again, that started in high school, but I was not afraid to do something different for a period. And it's interesting, I have 3 children. I have twin daughters that are 22, and my son is 17. And I had a conversation with my son a year or two ago, and he was really stressed out because all of his friends at school knew exactly what they wanted to do. They knew where they wanted to go to college. They knew what their career was going to be. And he was really stressed because he just didn't know. And I tried to speak some peace to that and say, well, the beauty of it is, and I'm a perfect example, is you don't just have to do one thing. And you can get out and try something and do your best and do it for a period. And if that's what sticks, great. But if not, just the worst thing you can do is make the decision that you're locked into something for the rest of your life. And so what I've tried to impart to my children, and I would love to impart to anyone, is work hard, do your best. But if what you are doing doesn't make your soul feel fulfilled, then change it. And don't be afraid to step out and do something different and do a complete career change, or if even just a change within the career, like I did from police work into becoming an attorney, and then even as an attorney, going from one practice area to another. Life is short. The worst thing you can do is be in a job where on Sunday afternoon you dread going to work, Monday morning, and on Thursday you're pining away for the weekend. Life's too short for that. And so what I've tried to impart to my kids, and what I would try to impart to anyone, is just be willing to change and don't feel like you're locked in.
Judge Veile, thank you so much for joining us on Tennessee Court Talk.
Sure. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.